Good morning, ICD, and welcome to another video for our coding class. In this particular coding day, we are going to code our temperature sensor LED. The circuit itself was fairly easy to put together. It is composed of three LED, three resistors, and one temperature sensor, and of course then all the different cabling that connect all these devices to our Arduino. The most important one is our sensor itself that is connected to the analog A0. Now, this coding for this project is very similar to the coding we did a few weeks ago when we did the LED with a distance sensor. This time, instead of a distance sensor, is going to be a temperature sensor. But the coding is very similar. So if you have trouble remembering how to do certain addition, subtraction, or how to create a certain formula, please go back and look at the previous template. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do for this project is we need to create three different variables. The first variable is our baseline temperature. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we created a baseline distance. It's very similar to that particular variable. Next, we're going to create Celsius and Fahrenheit. Let's get started coding. The first thing we want to do is adding a comment. Once again, comments are important because they help you remind you what you're doing during the coding. Trust me when I tell you that without comments, sometimes, especially when you do long project, you can forget what you do from one day to another. So the first comment we're going to do is we're going to set the threshold temperature for our project, for our LEDs. So we're going to create a comment and we're going to type in set threshold temperature. Next thing is we need to set up our baseline temperature for our project. The baseline is going to help us then turn on the LED on or off, depending on the temperature, if it's more or less than 40 degrees. Okay, so set. We're going to select the baseline temperature from the drop down, which is the top one. And on the number 0, instead of 0, we're going to select 40. We're going to drag and drop this underneath our first comment. Once we had the comment for the measure the temperature sensor, we are now ready to set up the Celsius temperature. From the drop down of the variable, we're going to click set. We're going to choose Celsius from the drop down and we're going to add it to our block. I'm adding it down here so that I can show you how the process works. Now, the temperature Celsius is composed of a mathematical formula. The formula is as so. The first thing we want to do is we want to map a reading from a particular sensor. But that reading from that particular sensor is composed of the sensor value minus a multiplication. So the first portion we're going to do in the map on the first 0 over here, we're going to add a subtraction. From the top list, we're going to add this one over here. We're going to change the value to subtraction. The first value where it says 1, we're going to add from our input read analog A0. We want to make sure it's on the first one. We want to make sure all of this is inside here. Then on the minus 20, okay, this particular portion over here is composed of another math formula, which in our case is a multiplication of 20 times 3.04. I'll make this a little bit bigger if I can. And then the two range is minus 40 to 125. What does this all means? We are setting a temperature which is based on the reading from our analog input, which is our temperature sensor, the minus 20 multiplied by 3 or 4, and whatever range the sensor gave us between 40 and 125. This one is going to give us the Celsius temperature. To convert, the next thing we're going to do is convert the Celsius value. We're going to convert the Celsius values to Fahrenheit. Simply, we're going to click again on the variable. In this case, we're going to select Fahrenheit. And the Fahrenheit is simply a multiplication of the Celsius value times 9 divided by 5. These 4 input over here for the print to serial monitor are not necessary for our project. Now, to what I call the fun part. This part should be very familiar to you because it's very similar to what you guys did a couple weeks ago. The first thing we want to do is we want to tell the Arduino that if the temperature is it's less than the Fahrenheit, than the baseline temperature, and the baseline temperature is 40, then I want all of my LED to be turned off. If you remember in the past, what we did was if the distance was over a certain amount, that no LED was turned on. Similar over here, if the Celsius is less than a baseline, then no LED on. So as we can see, the first portion where all my 3 LED are off, it's very simple. If the Celsius is less than a baseline, then nothing turns on. Now to step number 2. If the Celsius is more or equal to the baseline, and if the Celsius is less than the baseline plus 10, then I only want my first LED to turn on. How do we read this? If the Celsius is more or equal to the baseline, meaning the Celsius is equal to 40, but the Celsius has to be below 50. So if the temperature is between 40 and 50, turn on the first LED. Once again, if the Celsius is equal or more than the baseline, so is the temperature more than 40? Yes. Is the temperature less than 50? Yes. And then turn on the first LED. And so on with the next two different examples. If we want the 2 LED to turn on, is the temperature more or equal to 50, and is the temperature less than 60? Basically, is the temperature between 50 and 60? And then turn on 2 LED. Is the temperature between 60 and another temperature? Then turn on all 3 LED. Similar to what we did for the distance. Please review the instruction that I sent to you in a Google Docs that are attached to this assignment.